Hello and good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks for Campus Party for hosting me for this great event. I hope you all feel energized after Sharon opening comments, and I think it was really great comments as well as a great setup for the topic that I want to talk to you about today. The topic is reinventing the role of technology in education now and into the future. And I think, first about myself, my name is Gehad Galal. I'm responsible for education strategy and programs at Intel Corporation. And as a technology company, maybe like some people would think why Intel is talking to us about education. The fact is, Intel, it was established by educators. Our founders actually, they were all like educators teaching to students in different universities. And our purpose is to create world-changing technology that enriches the lives of every person on Earth. And to do that, we need, students today who are workers tomorrow to be the creators of the technology that we are working on, not just users of technology. And this is especially true for Africa, right? We really need to get out of being consumers of technology into creators and innovators of tomorrow. And Intel has been very active in education segment, actually, for years. We've been very active not only in creating technology that is right for the education and for students, teachers, but also in helping with teacher training and helping with different initiatives that can help mature and properly integrate technology in various education systems across the globe. With that, I really cannot talk about tomorrow without acknowledging today, right? I'm talking to you sitting on my couch. Hopefully a lot of you, or the large percentage of you, are sitting home, and I hope everybody stays safe. You know, COVID-19 pretty much forced all of us to stay home, right? And we need to cope with that, and we need to understand not only how to deal with it today, but how to build our future given what happened during the pandemic situation. And one of our founders, Dr. Andy Grove, one of my favorite quotes of him is bad organization are destroyed by crisis, good organizations survive them, but great organizations are improved by them. So we need to think about our education system. And when I say education system, I talk about K-12 education, high school, vocational. We need to understand how we can take the COVID-19 pandemic as a pivot into a much, brighter future for our students and for our countries. And to do that, we first need to look at what COVID-19, how COVID-19 impacted education. I think for the parents among you, or for the older brothers and sisters, having to stay behind to teach your, younger brother or sister, who's staying at home, and teachers struggling with delivering remote education, if it's possible or if it's available, because again, maybe the absolute majority of students, they really don't have a device that they can connect to receive a virtual lesson, right? However, what we learned from COVID-19, although it did help, technology did help. Again, some people were able to do remote, education. Some schools and institutions actually use technology to help prevent COVID-19 spread. But also, we discovered that education is really, or technology wasn't ready, and the infrastructure we have wasn't ready to really switch to remote education. Anywhere learning is definitely a challenge, and we learned that not only in Africa, by the way, but even in mature, well-established markets. Performance is critical, like people who are depending on using your cell phone or smart device, or even your tablet, to do pretty much everything on the internet. You discover that it's not that productive if you want to use it for work or if you want to use it for study. Equity, maybe, is, in my view, is the largest problem that was exposed. You cannot really expect people and teachers to participate in remote learning, interactive remote learning, without really having a device in the hands of the students. And the big question is, who has enough money really to give every student on earth and access the device so they can go and practice virtual education. So that's a very big question that, we're not going to answer today, but has to stay in the back of our mind. How to have a technology adoption model that is equitably or accessible to, all of our students, so we don't leave anybody behind. However, some people may react to the equity issue by saying, let's not invest in technology, guys. We cannot really make it available for everybody. If you think this way, then you are really hurting these people that you think you are protecting, because the future is all about technology and technology integration in the workplace. It's about technology skills that we need to teach our students today. So the answer cannot be let's not do it. The answer is let's think together of how we can do it, because any way we think about it, the future is an immersed in technology. And I'm going, to borrow a quote from Dr. J.D. Farage, he's the Dean of the African Leadership University, that pretty much says the same. Now we are really struggling with how to use technology in the COVID-19 situation, and a lot of things are not working and so on. And we need to use that as a pivot to how the future should look like. How can we redefine our technology adoption model so it really works for the benefit of education and for the benefit of our students? Not necessarily focusing on let's spend all of our education technology money for the next 10 years on providing a robust remote learning environment, because believe me, as I'm going to talk about in the next few slides, this is not going to be enough, right? And we need to face that reality. However, in order to plan for the future, we need to understand what is the future about. And I think Sharon mentioned, building the narrative about what needs to change in the society and in the environment and in the industry to be ready for the fourth industrial revolution. So what is the fourth industrial revolution bringing to us? To learn what the future look like, you need to go and look at the past. And if we go and look at what was the first industrial revolution and the second and the third, they always result in a shift in the required workers' skill, right? And I'm not going to go back or to the steam engine or to mass production and electricity. Let's take the third industrial revolution, which is kind of my generation and maybe a lot of the people listening. Think about the accountant who didn't learn how to use Excel, who is still, using pen and paper in order to do his tables and so on and so forth. He didn't learn how to use the spreadsheets. He didn't learn how to use online or web-based, accountant tools, right? Think about where this person is. I mean, maybe he still has a job, but what kind of job is it, right? And this is the question we need to ask ourselves. Industrial revolution always bring the need for more skill sets, and how we can use technology, not compete with technology. If you are planning your future to compete with the robots, you are going to lose, right? But if you plan your future that you are going to use the robots to solve much bigger problems and to do tasks in a much more efficient and reliable way, then you have a very bright future, right? And this is the way we need to think about how really do we equip our students today in the education system so they have the skills not only that makes them successful workers, but also to have a bright future for our country and for humanity in general. And really, as you always see, the future is already here, but it's not equally distributed. Today, jobs are already impacted by technology, robots, and 85% of customer interaction today, whether it is chatbots or other technology, is actually using some form of automation, right? And McKinsey is saying 50% of jobs can be replaced today by automation. And then in the future, in all even mature markets, I'm not talking about farming jobs being replaced by robots, but I'm also talking about mature economies, huge impact of the job market due to automation and due to the integration of technology. But it's not bleak. We're not saying that the robots are coming and taking over. We're saying that we need to think what we should do in the future. And this slide is saying as there are jobs that are declining, by 20, like World Economic Forum future of job report is saying, like, 75 million of jobs will be declining in 2022, and 133 million jobs will be created by 2022, right? So again, as I mentioned, Industry 4.0 and the fourth industrial revolution is forcing a change in the required skills and the required kind of jobs, the kind of jobs required in the future. And if you look on the right, if you are a data entry clerk, if you are like, doing like, farming and then these kind of jobs, you need to be worried, right? But then if you are a data analysis and a scientist or an AI machine learning specialist, then you should feel very comfortable. And for us who are active in the education segment, we need to make sure that we are preparing our students for the left-hand side kind of jobs, not for the right-hand side kind of jobs. So again, it's not really a bleak future. I mean, more jobs are going to be created, due to technology, and this is, based on World Economic Forum research. We just need to prepare for it in order not to be faced with a huge skill gap that we have, thousands and millions of students who graduate college, but they don't have the right skills to do the jobs that are required at the time. So for all of that, we at Intel, we actually adapted a new vision of using technology in education, and this is called Skills for Innovation. And like, since the picture is worth 1,000 words, I want to share with you a quick 2-minute video on that.
We're perched at the edge of a revolution that expands our idea of the possible beyond what we've ever imagined. It will redefine the roles of humans and machines in the workplace to maximize innovation and creativity. Some call it the fourth industrial revolution. Some call it Industry 4.0. For the nearly 2 billion children in school around the globe, this shift will significantly impact their lives and their roles in the future workforce. These changes hold great promise to help us solve the greatest challenges facing our world. Today's young people will require higher order thinking skills so that they can solve problems in ways never imagined before. Even traditionally hands-on careers will harness the power of technology. These future jobs will demand analytical thinking, ideation and complex problem solving, systems analysis and evaluation, technology design and programming, creativity, innovation. Using technology to access and consume content is no longer sufficient. Students need devices, tools, and training to apply, analyze, and create at the pace of change. Intel's new vision for education embraces skills critical for students' future success and reinvents the role of the PC in the classroom to ensure the next generation has the technologies and tools they need to meet the challenges of a changing world. Intel is working with decision makers and educators worldwide to plan technology adoption that supports higher order thinking skills and maximizes learning outcomes to prepare students for the future. Together, let's empower the next generation of innovators.
Okay. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. I think like it's what I really like about it is the hope that the future brings, right? And we really need to invest today so that we can reap the benefit of what technology advantages are bringing to us. But why the urgency, right? Like you may think that well, it happened before. It's always the case that jobs require new skills, right? So why do I need like to go and teach my like primary school students all the way up to college students something differently? And I think what the fourth industrial revolution is bringing us is a sense of urgency. And this graph that here is showing how much time it took a specific technology from invention to being widely adopted in the industry and in the society. So for steams and motor ships, the blinking blue circle, it took them about 110, 120 years from the point they were invented in the 18th century to the point they were widely applicable. While if you look at the internet, which is like a great component of the third industrial revolution, it took it less than 10 years from invention to widely adoption. So if you think about the current inventions or the current, like, think about something like quantum computing, right? Like you hear about it today in the research papers, and like, and it's really not mainstream yet. Something like that, when our students in like K-12 education today hit the job market, maybe that will be the mainstream computing model, which requires, by the way, totally different way of programming, right? So, are they going to be ready, like, for this kind of change? And this is like, why we really need to urgently think what we are teaching these students today, so they are ready for the future. Ready for a future that, honestly, people in my generation, it's hard for us to imagine. Like, think about these kind of jobs that are listed on this slide, like a weather design engineer or a gene programmer or a 3D printed clothing designer. These jobs are not really, does not exist today, right? Like, they are going to exist in the future. And like, we are the, my generation, unfortunately, we are the guys who are putting the system for our students to be ready for these kind of jobs. So we really need to get out of our comfort zone and think how we are going to put these seeds into our education system so we are ready for the future. And how do we really, get our students ready? It's about teaching them the necessary skills that will be needed in the future. And if you look at, again, the World Economic Forum Future Job Report about the top 10 skills that are needed in the industry today and how these top skills will change in 2022, right? You can see on the left-hand side that are some, skills are dropping from the top 10, like attention to detail and trustworthiness, right? Or coordination and time management. Other skills are like, declining. Other skills are improving in the top 10 list. But the one that is always maintaining its top position is analytical thinking and innovation, right? While things are, coming into the top 10 list, like technology design and programming and system analysis and evaluation. So we need to think, to read into the future and understand what are the future skills that the students will need to have, and then put into our students the right mindsets and the right skill sets to enable them to adapt and be lifelong learners, so they are ready, for the future whenever it comes. And if you talk to educators, they are really very familiar with like how to teach skills to students, how to, like, get them to, practice, and how to get them to apply and analyze. And the methodology they use to do that is called Bloom taxonomy. And I'm sure it's familiar with all the educators listening now. And Bloom taxonomy is a measure of the higher order thinking skills that the student is practicing when he is learning. Is he, remembering a piece of information, or does he really understand it? Or does he understand it well enough to apply it to something totally different than whatever exists in the textbook? Does he know it enough so that he can analyze using that piece of technology, or he can use it to evaluate something else, like, a design or like a construction that he needs to evaluate? Or eventually, like, he can use that piece of information to create something that doesn't exist today? Then, like, this is the true innovation. So that's kind of the educator language of how to, teach students skills. And we are borrowing that from the educators, like pedagogical books, to see how can we use technology in order to move our students in education from just remembering a piece of information and understanding that piece to a higher level of Bloom taxonomy. So today, actually, if you look at how we use technology in our education system today, and like, that's even, or it's almost globally applicable, we use it to give students access to contents, to give them access to interactive contents, adaptive contents, and so on and so forth. So it's pretty much, more focused on the remembering and the understanding part. This is where we are focused today. However, we believe that if we start to teach our students computational thinking, design thinking, and some hands-on technological tools like AI, machine learning, simulation and modeling, programming and coding, then we'll be able to actually teach them higher level and higher order thinking skills along the Bloom taxonomy. And, again, shift from using technology to access information, to using technology to provide active engagement that the students and the teachers will be engaged on to build the skills of the students. And this is the basis of Intel new vision, skills for innovation framework. We base everything on social and emotional skills, right? Like, you need your student to be a team player. You need him to be persistent. You need him to be, like, to learn from failure, right? You need him, like, to have the right social emotional skills that will enable him to be successful in the future job market, as well as successful team player. And technology is not, of course, the answer to everything, but even in social emotional learning, something like esports, I see that you guys have, like, some sessions on esports, like, later in the tomorrow, I think, or the day after. Esports is a great way to actually teach the students strategic thinking, teach them team playing, like teach them again how to not feel down because you have been beaten, right? So you learn from failure, learn how to do better next time. So I think, like, technology has a role even in social and emotional. I mean, I'm not saying again technology is the answer to everything, because something like teaching like social and emotional skills is something that educators and teachers know how to do very well. But what I'm just saying that we need to understand how we can use technology to even further help with that. Building on the social and emotional skills, you come to the mindsets. How do I need to think differently, right? In the future, it's about computational thinking, meaning that you use technology to solve problems, right? So use robots, use AI, use data science in order to solve a problem you have at hand. So it's kind of problem solving using technology, and we need to get the students to really understand and think this way. So that's why we call these mindsets, together with design thinking, which is what is the methodological approach to solve a problem, right? From understanding the requirement to designing a solution to critiquing the solution to reiterative refinement and so on. So these are the mindsets that we think we need to start putting into like our students minds. And then building on that, we need to teach them and give them access to building hands-on technological skill sets that understand where the future is going and what kind of skill sets will be needed in the future. And of course, this is not a comprehensive list, and this is going to be a changing list. However, this is where we think this list stand today. So I mean, like, next year or the year after, we may come and say we have a different skill sets or technology hand-on exercises and activities that we think we need to start integrating in our everyday teaching and learning. So with that said, like, every one of these skills, it also have sub skills, right? Like, and the way that we are promoting skills for innovation is really not to go and change curriculum or introduce a new subject that's called design thinking that we teach to middle school or high school students. We are not really suggesting a drastic change of curriculum. What we are suggesting is we can enrich existing curriculum with specific technology activities that can help the students master these skills and improve their mindsets with age. So again, as you are teaching student language skills and math skills starting from primary grades all the way to high education and universities, so that it's second nature to them. So when they are really thinking about adding two numbers, it's kind of second nature. They really don't think much about it. So we need to teach them computational thinking and design thinking in the same way. So they are kind of second nature. They are really not thinking much about it. It's their automatic response to solving problems and thinking about designing solutions. Okay, so how do we really come to, and this is a summary slide saying, okay, if we are able to do properly integrate these skill building activities, technological based skill building activities in our everyday curriculum, then we'll achieve our students moving up the Bloom taxonomy and gaining more cognitive skills. How do we do that? What are the roles that that everybody in the education system need to think about? The students, they need to shift from information consumers to creative problem solvers. And as I mentioned, really accessing contents or learning material online is really not going to be enough. Let's get them to practice technological tools, gain skills, so they are really creative problem solvers. They need to become self-directed lifelong learners, and to be able to learn in a technology immersed future, we need to equip them with the skill sets, the social emotional skill sets that will enable them to do that. Educators and teachers, university professors, whoever is in charge of providing our students with information, they can no longer be the sage on stage. They are really not the know-it-all. I mean, you don't expect the teacher today to be the master of data science, AI, machine learning, computational thinking, design thinking, and all of that. However, you expect them to be facilitators of learning, right? So they are able to facilitate their students to learn these concepts and these skills. And they also need to integrate, to understand how to integrate technology, create lesson plans that will allow their students to do that. And then on the decision maker, they have the biggest role. Like they need to understand where they are today and what do they need to change in their education system, and how to go through change management so they are preparing their education system for the future. And then, as far as solution goal, like, what the technology that I give or I provide access to my students and my teacher, like, need to do. And I think of that as, for the students, they need to practice specific usage model. For the educators, they need to employ, technology to empower skill building, to provide immersive contents. And then we have to have a learning and teaching environment that is reliable, secured, manageable, that allow collaboration between the students, and allow, like, or even a smart canvas solution, for example, that would allow the students to practice, and to practice, like, IoT, for example, different skill sets, and see a version of the future workplace. So in a summary, the call to action or the reimagining of technology education is, although COVID-19 is forcing us to really adapt technology for access, I think we need to take the chance today to redesign our education system and reinvent and rethink our technology usage in education, so our technology adoption is aimed to growing skills for the students, because this is how we are going to prepare our students for the future. I finish by another quote, one of my favorite quotes, by Dr. Robert Noyce, again, one of the Intel co-founders. Don't be encumbered by history, go off and do something wonderful. Don't be encumbered by COVID-19. I think we all hope that is going to go away, but we have the responsibility that if a pandemic happens again, then we are ready for it, and our education system is resilient resilient enough to cope with that. So thank you very much, and, like, I'll be happy to answer any questions online and offline. Thank you very much, and again, like, thanks for hosting me.